Thank you all so much for joining us on Run the World and on LinkedIn. My name is Jessica Charlson, and I am co-founder of the Forward Collective. And the founders of Forward Collective are entrepreneurs who are focused on future of work solutions. We saw an opportunity to bring together startups and businesses to learn, connect, engage, and spark new ideas that lead to a better workforce. And today we are thrilled to welcome Ellen Johnson and Jason Luk from Verizon Media. Ellen works in the health and finance space, working directly with clients to understand how the trends today are shaping their future growth. Jason is a global leader of their Mindfulness team, where in addition to leading their internal team through webinars, offsites, and workshops, he's providing thought leadership in the space, being featured in media, including Forbes and Mindful magazine. Today, they will be sharing how to cultivate well-being and innovation by using mindfulness to enhance creativity, perspective, and a general state of well-being. I'm going to pass it off to Ellen to get us started. So Ellen and Jason, come up on stage and I will disappear. Hi, Ellen. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Jess. Thanks so much for having us. We're really happy to be here and contribute to this conversation. All right, so do you want to present mode? Okay. All right, as Jess said, I'm Ellen Johnson and I work in integrated sales strategy covering the health and wellness category and finance at Verizon Media. So a little bit about what I do before we jump into it. I moved into this category at what you could say was a really interesting time last year, literally at the start of the pandemic. As we all were trying to understand what was happening and how to adapt, a key piece of my job was and continues to be monitoring those shifting trends and consumer behaviors within this space. Not surprisingly, some of the biggest emerging trends centered around consumers' attitudes and behaviors when it comes to how they approach their physical and mental health. So if you go to the next slide, we're going to walk through, if you keep going, Jason, sorry, the mental health landscape, followed by mindfulness at Verizon Media, beginner's mind talk, and a guided meditation practice, key takeaways, and finally, the large group sharing and Q&A. So you want to go to the next slide? As and the next slide. Yes. Let's see. As it stands now, more than ever before, we live in a world where wellness matters. Here at Verizon Media, we've continued to monitor these shifts with quarterly consumer pulse surveys. And at a high level, what we found was the pandemic really forced us to take inventory of both our mental and physical health. In light of the pandemic, more people were spending time exercising, learning how to meditate or practice mindfulness, and a large portion, about 51% increase in adults were seeking therapy or counseling. So if you go to the next slide, the current state, while mental health across the US is slowly improving, with 48% of people saying they do feel they're in a better place compared to this time last year, and that's up 12% since those surveyed in December of this year, past year. We know that although happy and good represent the top emotions experienced in the last month, depressed, sad, and anxious still round out the top 5. So there's definitely room for improvement. If you go to the next one. So it makes sense that there's roughly 51% or half of Americans who still feel concerned about their mental health, with 1 in 5 being very concerned. And unfortunately, around 20% of those surveys are still not seeking treatment due to the negative stigmas attached. What was eye-opening for many, I think, is just this newer concept of the importance of prioritizing not only your physical, but your mental health, and how they really go hand in hand. I think the biggest takeaway that I've learned and what I've seen from some of these insights and trends is that mental health is really an ongoing journey. There's not really a specific end, such as, I did this and now I'm better. It's really about building resilience and finding new ways, such as mindfulness or meditation, to incorporate both of them into your everyday lives. So if you go to the next slide, what's probably of most interest to many of you tuning in today is that outside of their healthcare providers, people truly are looking to their employers to do more to help with their mental health, around 39% to be exact. So the need for education and coping techniques is there, and it most likely will continue to be there in the years to come. So if you go to the next one, this brings us to what corporations like Verizon Media and Verizon are doing to help fill this need. So even though many of these programs and wellness resources existed before the pandemic, there wasn't necessarily as much awareness or utilization of them. So what I found, and I'm sure Jason can also attest, is that Verizon did a really great job at kind of springing into action early on at the start of this. And they've really continued to check in and make sure we know of all of the resources available. And as you can see, there is a new initiative where they're really joining forces with these other larger corporations to create more mental health awareness, more resources for their employers, consumers, and just the industry overall. And as you can see, there's still a lot of work to be done. Less than a third of the workforce feels comfortable discussing. So it is a really important conversation. And as on a personal note, I felt very supported throughout this past year, and I'm really proud of that commitment to just the overall wellness of their employees. So, all right, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jason Luk, our wonderful global mindfulness lead here at Verizon Media, who is going to talk more about our wellness programs. So, Jason, take it away.
Thanks, Ellen. And before I talk about the mindfulness program here, I think it's important to note that my full-time role is actually in the advertising sales team. And this is a side project, a passion project of mine that I proposed to our chief people officer a couple years ago to get support. And what our ecosystem at a high level looks like. And mindfulness, I wouldn't say is the end-all be-all for mental health, and it's certainly one modality to support that. And first and foremost, we have a partnership with Insight Timer, which is a very large meditation app that's actually available for free, most of it. And there's a premium component that we give all of our employees access to. And then every day of the week, we host guided meditations. I happen to host them Mondays and Thursdays, and these are actually open to the public. And you're welcome to join. You can reach out if you would like to be added to these. And these give our employees a chance to really come together and to connect and just see how we're doing. We also bring in speakers, and we live stream these events to help with broader awareness. And we've had Sharon Salzberg and Rhonda McGee, so different types of speakers on various topics. And then at the deepest level, we have webinars, workshops, and courses, and some of these are facilitated by myself, and we also partner with an organization called the Potential Project to offer multi-week programs that can really be a longer journey for people to journey together in a cohort. So how about some of the results that we've seen? We have 16%, and builders are what we refer to as employees within our organization. 16% of our employees are participating in our programs, and we're seeing an average of 58 participants coming to our various live events, like the speakers and training opportunities. And 91% have rated our programming as either a 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4. So pretty strong marks there. And that meditation app I spoke of, we have almost 2,000 employees registered for that, which is a very strong number. And our total population is just north of 10,000, just to give that some perspective. And we've had over 900 employees come to those peer-led guided live meditations. And most of them said that they would recommend those to a colleague. And I think probably one of the biggest endeavors and stats we've seen, and this is all based on self-reported in-house survey data, is that 70% noticed a reduction in stress after they participated in at least one or more of our programs. And one of my favorite quotes after facilitating an experience came from a sales leader. It was the mindful moment that I didn't even realize I needed. And that quote really has stuck with me. And I thought it would be worth sharing. Now, one of the things that mindfulness can help with is our ability to tap into creativity. And part of that is having a beginner's mind. And a beginner's mind means we drop our expectations and our preconceived ideas about something. You might have had some expectations of what today's talk was going to be. And is it possible to just stay open and see what's possible with fresh eyes? And you might recall what it was like to learn something new, whether it was ballet dancing, as this picture shows, or I know playing the piano and learning karate for me as a child. And you might recall at the beginning, it's kind of a little confusing, a little difficult, not sure what was really happening. And at the same time, it's learning those new things that brings this sense of curiosity and wonder, which happens when we practice mindfulness and meditation. So some of the benefits of having a beginner's mind: we can have better experiences when we aren't clouded by prejudgments or preconceptions or even fantasies about what things should be like, and what we think they should be like. And we also don't end up becoming disappointed or frustrated when they don't meet our expectations. We can have better relationships. If you're talking to somebody else, instead of being frustrated because they aren't meeting your ideal, whether it's on a date or a colleague that you're working with that's difficult, or that special family member, remembering that just like you, they just want to be happy. And sometimes it shows up in different ways. And having a beginner's mind can also help combat procrastination. So instead of thinking of a task as being daunting and impossible to overcome, you bring curiosity to notice all the details and all the aspects of the project. And last but not least, having a beginner's mind can reduce anxiety. So instead of worrying about what's going to happen next, you can just stay open and curious as to what might unfold, and embracing and finding gratitude in the moment as things happen. I want to talk a little bit about some of the data on the concept of divergent thinking. Sir Ken Robinson, who's a creativity expert, he has shed some light on the primary source of our crisis in creativity. And divergent thinking is our ability to see many possible answers to a question, which is fundamental to creativity. And one of the ways researchers evaluate this is they ask questions like, how many uses are there for a shoe? Or how many things can you do with a paperclip? And so most people might give 10 or 15 answers, and other people can come up with up to 200 responses to these types of questions. And psychologists classify the latter group in that 200 as being geniuses at divergent thinking. Now, there was a study done with 1,500 participants that received these types of questions, and these participants were all 5 years old. I'd be curious, using the chat box, how many would you guess scored at the genius level? And Ellen, if you see numbers coming through, feel free to read out loud. Any guesses? How many 5-year-olds?
One person, all of them. Two people said all of them. A third, all.
Very close. Very, very close. 98% of 5-year-olds scored at that level. Now, these researchers tracked these same 5-year-olds 5 years later, so at age 10, and only 32% scored as high. Then another 5 years later, at age 15, only 10% scored at that same genius level. As a separate test, 200,000 adults were given this test. And how many would you guess scored at the genius level? The guesses were almost all for 5-year-olds. What do you think, adults? And this would probably be yourself and myself in this bucket.
We've got 5% as a guess.
It's a
couple 5%, 2%.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. 2%. And so this research is really a wake-up call for those. I mean, for those of you who have children, you might imagine that their genius level and their curiosity and their questions are probably maybe resonating with some of this data. And what can we do as adults to bring back that innate genius within us? One of those ways is with meditation, because when we meditate, we are practicing having a beginner's mindset. So even as I talk about the concept of meditation, and I'm about to guide us all in a practice, you can conceptually maybe imagine what the breath is going to be like, or maybe what the present moment will feel like. And we're letting go of what we think might happen to really just opening to what will happen as we go through this. Now, children and wiser old people, they tend to be more receptive and able to tap into the beginner's mind. And it's something that we can all do when we come into the here and the now, which is why I love mindfulness, because it's about being in the present moment. And beginner's mind is really our mind's natural state. And it's not something that it's not something that's difficult to attain or that takes years of practice to achieve. And when we believe those things, it just creates tension and makes it more difficult to get there. So this isn't something we're trying to do. We're going to kind of come into the being and to find a way to see what that is like in practice. So I'm about to start our meditation practice. And at the beginning, what I'm about to show is a picture on the screen. So we're going to have our eyes open at the beginning, and I'm going to invite you to use the chat box to share what you're observing, just to set that expectation. So we're going to begin by finding a comfortable posture. You could be seated or standing, whatever is most supportive for you. And now I'm going to put this picture on the screen. So we're going to keep our eyes open for just a few minutes. And I want you to just notice what you see in this picture. You might have something similar to this in your own home. And the invitation is just to see what do you notice right now. And you can use the chat box to put in things you might be observing. If we were in a live room together, I'd just have you say it out loud. And since this is a live stream event, just using the chat box. What do you notice?
We have someone who says green. Another person saying the water droplet was the first thing that they noticed. And another person. The spikes on the end of the succulent leaves. The petals look soft. The spikes for another person as well. Symmetry. Soothing colors. The color of the wood and texture. The top right looks like snakes. Yeah, the top right reminded someone of a tentacle. And someone else wrote a sense of peace. Another person, the texture. Natural lighting.
Yeah. I'm going to invite us to pause now. And at this point, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable, or just lower your gaze. And we're shifting our attention from our visual sense gate of looking at the screen and the image that I had put up to what's happening inside. So let's take the journey down from our thinking and cognitive mind into the felt sense of what's happening in our body. You might begin just by noticing your points of connection to the floor or a chair or whatever surface is supporting you. There might be heaviness, maybe warmth or coolness. Just getting curious, what's it like to have a body? You might notice movement in your belly and chest with your breathing. Maybe there's a itching sensation in your nose or your face. And perhaps you might notice the sense of density or solidity within your muscles and your bones. Maybe even noticing the lower back half of your body, this sense of weight or subtle sense of gravity. So this is an invitation to shift from the concept of cognitively experiencing what's happening to really feeling what's happening right now. Maybe there's a tingling sensation somewhere in your body. Maybe you can notice the fabric of the clothing that you're wearing. Maybe it's possible to feel a sense of the temperature based on how the air contacts your skin. I'm going to invite you to ever so gently open your eyes if they were closed, or return your gaze to the screen if it was lowered. And I want you to look at the object on the screen now. And using the chat box again, what do you notice now about this image? Is there anything different?
It's even more calm, dreamy, and earthy. Someone said light and shadow are more dominant. Another said there's growth. Another said the light hitting the plant. For me, when the first time we did this, the colors became more vivid. I remember the greens really stood out more.
And I remember someone, Ellen, the first time I did this with you, someone shared that they felt the succulent became more three-dimensional, and I didn't see it then, and I'm noticing I'm seeing it now. It almost feels like it's popping up on the screen.
Right, I see that too. Another person agreed with that.
And as we bring this practice to a close, I just invite you to contemplate the difference between your experience of the first 2 minutes compared to these recent 2 minutes. Are you finding yourself feeling surprised by what you're noticing? Just being curious. Okay, we're going to bring our practice to a close formally. You can take a deep breath if that would be helpful. And come back to being in the moment with this image, to coming back to being in learning mode. I'm going to share some takeaways. What we just did was a really micro meditation, and the closed eye portion or lowered gaze was about 3 minutes just to go into your body. And that's something that you can do to really bring a fresh perspective and fresh pair of eyes. Maybe if you've been staring at a presentation or a spreadsheet for hours, it could be a way to reset. So other ways to practice beginner's mind is dropping this concept of being an expert or having an expert's mind. And I, as a mindfulness teacher myself, I always remind people who say that I'm a mindfulness expert that I'm still a student myself. And just being in the moment and seeing what's here. And particularly you can pay attention to what's happening in your body, or you could also notice the different senses, sound, smell. And this is something you can bring to any activity, whether you're learning how to knit or talking to the most challenging family member. And actually, that goes into the next point about talking to another human being. And maybe while somebody might be challenging, I wonder what they might be like today. And maybe tomorrow is the same, but just maybe. We'll see. You can bring this when you're doing creative brainstorms with other people. And it's super helpful when you're wrestling with a difficult decision. Where am I gonna move to? What's my next job going to be? And keep in mind that whatever is known is really just a perspective. With that said, I want to make sure there's some time for Q&A, reflections, sharing. You can ask questions. You can share more about what the meditation was like for you. Anything that's coming up.
We've got a couple comments so far. One person said they felt more calm and comfortable just for that time. Thank you. And then another feels more alert and clear.
Jason, thank you. That was wonderful. I would wonder, when you're talking about mindfulness versus meditation to people who aren't as familiar, how do you kind of draw the line between the two, and how do you connect the two?
That's like everything. And so mindfulness in terms of being in the moment, I can be mindful right now by giving you my full undivided attention, because what's happening right now is this interaction between the two of us. Meditation can be more formalized, like when we closed our eyes and we sat in this particular way and position. That also is a form of mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness can be more on the spot. So not like monotasking, I think, is one way to be mindful. And meditation can be a more formal practice. And meditation doesn't always just mean sitting with your eyes closed. There's walking meditation, standing meditation. There's all sorts of different kinds of meditation. So meditation is like an umbrella of different practices. Mindfulness falls underneath meditation.
Gotcha. I do have another question here. What tools have you used to invite people into the practice that feel it's too soft, or like the resistance that you get from people in the business world or corporate or anywhere?
Yeah. Usually it's a little micro practice. So I'll start by being invited by a team to guide like a meeting kickoff. It's maybe 4 or 5 minutes. And that's when that quote I shared earlier with that sales leader, that was the mindful moment I didn't even realize I needed. So usually I just start with a couple minutes, because I think the experience of the practice is going to be way more powerful than kind of talking about the benefits or getting all cognitive about it. So give a little micro experience.
Awesome. I think that's great. And then do you feel like engagement has continued to grow within the ecosystem? I know you had those stats at the beginning, but do you feel like you've seen continued traction and picking up, or is it like an initial rush that continues to kind of be the same people who are joining and participating?
So both. It's when I started the program, it was a big rush, and then kind of like it leveled off. And then with the pandemic, for better or worse, people became more open to the practice, because I think people were looking for more ways to care for their mental health.
Awesome. One more quick question. Do you hope for teams to start meetings with their own little mini meditations, or has that been happening already at Verizon?
That is my vision, is that all team meetings would start with that. I do that with my team meetings. And I know that most people don't feel comfortable facilitating. And so on apps like Insight Timer, and if you find me on it, I actually have a 5-minute practice that you can play for your team that I created so that people could just hit the play button and not have to worry about guiding with their voice.
Awesome. Well, I want to wrap up now. Thank you for putting up your contact, and thank both Jason and Ellen. This has been fantastic. We do hope you'll join us next month when we are welcoming Inclusion Analytics to learn how they are helping businesses address DE&I in the workplace and measuring the impact of their DEI efforts. And so if you have any questions or if you want to learn more or want to watch part of this event again, visit forwardwork.co/events. So thank you guys so much, and everyone have a great rest of your day.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, guys.